Hello and welcome back to another episode of the DIYGuy.net. Alright, today we're going to be showing you how to replace or upgrade your battery in your Suzuki DRZ. We chose the BikeMaster lithium-ion battery as an upgrade over the factory battery. Alright, so while we're in there replacing the battery, we're going to add the quick disconnect leads for a battery tender. That way when the bike's not in use or when it's stored a long period of time like through the winter, we can connect the battery tender, and what it's going to do is top off the battery, maintain it. That way the cells don't freeze and you don't damage the battery. So it's going to cause your battery to last a lot longer if you're using a battery tender. Now if you don't have one and you're planning on buying one, you should because they work great. But make sure you buy a dual port one so you can charge two things. A lot of people end up buying just the single one thinking they only have their street bike or something they only use during the summer to charge. And then they like it so much because it does what it's supposed to, keep the battery from freezing and it makes it last a lot longer, that they end up having to have to buy another one or upgrade to the dual port. There's always going to be two things that you want to charge, I would say. At least two. I mean, whether you got the street bike, you got your lawnmower battery that you don't mow obviously in the winter, so you would need to bring that battery in. A car you don't drive in the winter. So there's multiple things to use them for. So buy a dual port, save yourself a little bit of hassle of having to go out and buy another one or upgrade later. Alright, so I'll move the camera a little bit closer to the box, that way you can get the part number off it, and we'll open it up and then we'll get started on replacing the battery. So it's a BikeMaster lithium-ion battery, the ultra-high cranking amps, lightweight, third of the weight of the battery that's currently in your bike, 2-year warranty. Part number is the DLFP7B-BS. So it comes with different mounting screws depending on what style you have. It's kind of a universal upgrade for a battery. It's got a little red cover on it. Pop that off. Big rubber cover. Positive with the red, black negative. So like I said, it's a BikeMaster DLFP7B-BS. The voltage is 12.8 and the cranking amp is 125. So we're going to go ahead and remove the side covers and get started. Alright, so our battery is located right here on the left side of the bike. We need to remove this cover to gain access to it, but this cover is above this cover, so we need to remove this cover first. You may have three 8mm bolts, but on this particular bike, they're just easy twist. Just flip up the lever, twist, and you'll hear it pop loose. We'll do that for all three, and then this cover will be removed. Wiggle a little bit, and you can remove it. Now for this cover, we have two 8mm bolts, so we'll grab a ratchet, extension, and socket, and remove those two bolts. Alright, so once we get those two covers removed, you notice your battery is located right here. Next, we're going to remove the two battery terminals. So you can use a number 2 Phillips screwdriver or an 8mm wrench. Depending if someone already stripped the Phillips side out, is whether you can use the Phillips or the wrench. We'll start with the positive side. Alright, so once we get the battery terminals disconnected, we're going to need a 10mm socket and ratchet right here to remove this. That way we can hinge the battery door open and remove the battery. Once we get the battery door out of the way, we can wiggle this battery out. Alright, so there's the old heavy one we took out. Discard that. Here's our new nice and light one. What's nice about this battery is it actually fits inside the battery holder, as you'll see. Wiggle it in there. And there's really no gaps. There's some lithium-ion batteries that replace here that are kind of universal. They only take up like half or a third of the battery box, and then you got to stuff the outside with foam. That way it doesn't rattle around in there. So this one fits pretty good and snug. Alright, so now that we got the battery in the box, we can go ahead and grab the battery holder or battery bracket. It's got two little holes here that need to hook onto the side tabs on the side of the battery box and roll it into position. We'll grab that 10mm shouldered bolt and start it and run it down hand tight. Next, we'll grab a ratchet, 10mm socket, tighten it down. Alright, so now that we got that snug down, the battery's held into the battery box, we go ahead and remove our old bolts out of the battery terminal ends. You're going to notice these are the smaller eyelet holes on the battery terminal ends, so we're going to use the smaller hardware when we actually go to reconnect it to the battery. So we'll grab some sandpaper and clean up the terminal ends. Both sides, positive and negative. Alright, so now that we got the ends cleaned up, we can go ahead and grab the quick disconnect for the battery terminal. You'll notice it's got the two sides that go on the battery, positive and negative. The positive side has a 7.8 fuse in there, in this fuse holder. Then it goes down to this end, which has the watertight connection. Pop that off, and then you can connect it to your battery tender. So what we're going to do is keep the charging port side down here. It'll be behind the white cover that covers the air filter. We'll run along the frame. We'll go up here, we'll use the factory zip tie, and then out to the positive and negative side of the battery. Alright, so we're going to undo the zip tie by holding the little clip up. We can slide it apart, and we can reuse it. We'll take the battery terminal ends for the battery tender, tuck them in there. Use the factory zip tie and retighten it up. Make sure the ends will reach the battery itself. We'll go ahead and tuck this up inside of here, and then we'll grab a couple of zip ties and zip tie that in. So when it's not in use, it'll just be tucked up in here. That white cover will cover all that. We'll go ahead and grab some cutters, cut the ends of the zip ties. Alright, so now that we got the quick disconnect cable for our battery tender installed, we can go ahead and open the hardware that came with our battery, and we can reconnect everything to the battery. You want to get your little blocks out with the thread in them first. Depending on how you want to mount your terminals now, you may want to slide it in like that, or with the threads towards you. I'm going to install it with the threads towards me, so I'm going to slide it in with the threads towards me. It's going to take a little bit of finesse because we have to lift the block up a little bit to get the bolt to start in it. Alright, so once you get that block inside your battery terminal, we're going to go ahead and take the quick disconnect terminal end for the battery tender, place that next, then we'll put the bolt inside the eyelet for the terminal for the bike, and then sandwich it in there and tighten it up. You may need a little screwdriver just to lift the block to get the bolt to start in the block. Put the bolt into the terminal end, get it started, put it through the battery eyelet for the quick disconnect and the battery tender, and then we'll stick it into the bolt within the bike. Get everything lined up the way we want it, and then we'll really tighten it down. Alright, so now that we get the negative side on and tight, we go ahead and repeat the process with the positive side. We'll go ahead and slide our block in. We'll add our quick disconnect positive lead for the battery tender, and then the bike end, and sandwich it together and tighten it up. So the block's in. Go ahead and grab our screw. Use the small screwdriver to lift the block up or stop it from spinning so you can tighten it up. Once we got it started, we'll go ahead and readjust all our cables where we want them. That cleaner look. Go ahead and tighten it down. Go ahead and check the negative side again. Alright, so now that we got the negative and positive tight, we go and reinstall our boot over the positive terminal. Once we have the boot on, we can reinstall this cover. We'll go ahead and line it up under the seat, under the fender, line up the bolt holes. We'll grab the bolts. The longer one goes up for the seat bolt. We'll go ahead and start that by hand. The shorter one goes down low. Go ahead and start that one by hand. Now that we have them started, both bolts started by hand, go ahead and switch over to our 8mm, tighten them up. Alright, so now that we got these two 8mm bolts snug down and tight, holding the rear cover in position, we can go grab their air filter cover and go ahead and reinstall that. Make sure it's in the groove all the way around. Push in on it. Go ahead and lock it in. Click it. Push the tab down. Sometimes this side's a little tricky. You may have to push in with your finger or thumb to get it to catch. We'll flip it down and lock it in. Same thing on the bottom. Alright, so now we got that cover on. If you had the other style cover with the 3 8mm bolts, run them in finger tight, then switch over to ratchet and snug them down. So let's go ahead and see if it starts. Alright, so I put the choke on halfway, and we'll see how fast it starts up. Alright, so I just wanted to show you how the quick disconnect for the battery tender works. We have it mounted right here. So we're going to go ahead and just push down. We can wiggle it a little bit, pull it out, pull that waterproof cap off, go ahead and connect it to the battery tender, plug it in, charge your bike while it's not in use or stored for the winter. We want to go riding, put that watertight cap back on, and we'll just tuck it back up in there, and then you don't even see the cable at all. So that's how the quick disconnect lead works for the battery tender. So with the bike starting and running as it should, that's it. We just showed you how to replace or upgrade your battery in your Suzuki DRZ400. Thanks for watching another episode of the DIYguy.net. If you just finished building you the subscribe button, click that to get our latest DIY fixes delivered right to you. If you just finished building you the what's next button, you can click that and we'll help you figure out what you want to fix next. You can also click the link in the description which takes you to our website for a full write-up.